the conclusion that I can come to is that the financial institutions are not educating the consumer the proper way. My name is Dr. Raymond Jewell, and I'm here with Matt McCarter. We are in the financial field, and we want to make sure that we get information to the consumer that's real, that you can actually understand and take advantage of. Share screen. Do you see the desire?
Yeah, I got it. Yep, the leap page.
Okay. I'm working on an article, Will Taxes Outpace Income? And in this article, what I'm learning is that we're going to go through some pretty rough, rocky road in 2024 because the governments are trying to raise money from all over the place. So when you look at our economy is actually being driven by the financial institutions. It always has. And they're the ones that educate financial planners. They're the ones that educate the bankers and all that kind of stuff. The financial institutions are driving the bus. One thing they're doing that should not happen and why people are failing is they have no structure. Because if you look at the screen here, people have a desire to achieve wealth, long-term wealth. I don't know of anybody that that goes through life saying, I don't want to have long-term wealth. I don't want to have retirement income. I don't want to minimize taxes. I don't want a lasting legacy. I don't want to reduce cost and risk.
Correct.
These terms and these desires came out of 30 some years or 20 some years. I think it was put up probably about, this slide was made probably about 10 years ago. So we had 30 years or more of looking at people and why they're failing. So when we look at the desire, we now are a leg up with financial planners because they don't understand even this. They're just looking for products. You may get a few of them that really want to practice financial planning, and they really, get down into the nuts and bolts without a structure or a model. And they may understand this a little bit, and that puts them ahead of the game, but not all of them. Most of them are pushing products to get paid. They got to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have this desire, you run up against all sorts of problems, and that is making financial decisions in our lives.
Yeah. And I think that's the big sell point that I go after when I talk to consumers and customers is the way you make decisions and the consequences or the outlook on what those decisions are going to come to. So a lot of times people will make a decision based on this time or this phase of their life without considering what that need's going to look like in the future. So when people go into financial advisors are simply answering today's questions without taking into consideration what those concerns may look like in the future. So people end up buying products throughout their life, and there's no continuity between those products. So they buy something, and then they sit it on the shelf, and then a new phase of life comes, like college, and then they start putting money into a 529 plan, and then another lifestyle changes, and they start doing other things like purchasing money for a new home, versus looking at their total net worth organized.
That's the word, organized.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat through a lot of financial planning seminars years ago.
Hmm.
Never heard them talk about financial decisions made like this. And although we've been doing this now for what, I've been doing it 40 years, um, and you're probably close behind me. The the organization of making financial decisions is really powerful, and nobody pays attention to it because they get hit with their PNC guy, they get
Hmm.
hit with their life insurance guy, they get hit with the mutual fund sales guys, and they're all different people. You
Correct.
may get one that will do it all, and that's a little better, but I'm not so sure that they're actually seeing this from a structured position in order to make financial decisions as they relate to each other different categories of products.
Correct. A lot
And
of times, even institutions alone, like, I mean, when insurance companies were able to start selling, marketable securities, and when banks were starting to able to sell insurance products, they looked at that not so much to help the customer organize their financial needs. They looked at it as another source of income that they could generate from their book of business. So you think about it, if you're a bank and you have deposits that, or the high CD deposits, if you start to sell annuities or mutual funds, you have a whole new avenue to generate revenues from. But
yeah,
the financial institutions weren't, in my opinion, weren't doing that to help round their customers' financial betterment. It was more to increase their revenues with their customers. So a lot of times when, Ray, I remember when you were training me on your deck, and you would use things like the junk drawer, and other guys would laugh because it draws a picture of what somebody's financial, what a lot of people's financial picture looks like. It doesn't mean they're going to be unsuccessful. It just means
right.
that you're not taking a look at how to do it a little easier. There's a wise saying about a lumberjack. You can swing the axe 300 times a day, or you can swing it 100, take a break, sharpen it, and swing it another 100 and accomplish the same thing. That's where people fall in today's world, because the financial institutions, as we've always preached, are looking for those consumers to give them their money over a long period of time, for the financial institutions to keep that money for as long as possible, and thirdly, to give it back to the consumer on a systematic basis as long as possible. So that it's built
As
for their interest
as little as possible.
as little as possible. Correct. Yep. Yep.
So the junk drawer, when you look at this, and I can understand over 40 years getting pushback with this process because people are so ingrained in the financial institutions. I mean, crap, they advertise all over the place, and they're trying to persuade people to buy, and then all of the financial planners are running out there trying to sell them something, and then people go, I don't want to be sold anything. I just want to be shown how to win this game.
Yeah.
And what I've learned over the years is that learning is not that hard. It just has to be structured. But when you bring a structured model in front of somebody, their brain goes, till they
Because they're
can't think. What's
because
that?
it's not the norm is to organize your finances in systematic. The system leads us down unorganization, so that the control and the power stays with the financial institutions.
Right.
When you
Unless
make it organized, you can reverse that and use the same products that the financial institutions use. Okay. But you can reverse it where that you get the benefit from it. And I
yeah.
think that's the paradigm shift that people are afraid of, because the trust in the financial institutions is declining, because people are less trustworthy of recommendations and what the financial institutions have been doing over the past 20 years. So as a consumer, you're kind of intimidated, but it takes a paradigm shift in the way you think about money to be organized. And I think one of the books that I read very young in my career that made it easy for me to think this way and follow your lead in communicating it to the what's it called, consumer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad
Oh
Poor
yeah.
Dad. You have to really take a look at, and the financial institutions' products are not bad. It's how they're utilized, and you have
Right.
to utilize them differently, and that's the difference in the way you need to think.
Well, and it's how you educate the consumer. Like
Yeah,
if you go and you show a senior a 10-year annuity and they're 75 years old, that's wrong.
correct.
Uh, you've got to understand their world. You've got to understand the organization. You talk about Kiyosaki. He came up with a model.
Hmm.
He had a model that people could fit into, but he wasn't just in the financial world. He was in the business world
Correct.
and talking about money. But when you come at it from a position of organization in the financial world, you're able to see things that people don't normally see when they're dealing one on one with a with an individual, with their when they're trying to make financial decisions. If they could see it all together, it's ever so much more powerful.
And
It's
a lot of times they can't get out of their own way. They make it so complicated that a lot of times the customer can't follow it in detail, and then that adds anxiety and stress to the plan. So I mean, the plan has to be the plan is supposed to be an enjoyable way to meet financial objectives,
yeah,
and then the worry part of it is taken care of through the protection side of it. So when you thoroughly analyze your protection and you maximize your protection, really your worries out of there then. And one of the concerns I have is, a lot of the times we're recommending the property and casualty, the insurance works, is that industry has commoditized it. Is they say, well, you can build your own plan to meet your budget, and those products shouldn't be bought based on how much they cost. They should be based on how much they protect your family.
that's right.
So a lot of times it starts really in the protection side of it. And if that's properly done and organized, and then you can fall through, then you know that your plan's set on a solid foundation for you to leave some of the worry and angst away in future years.
You've got financial defense and financial offense.
Correct.
If you're not protecting your financial defense and you're just doing financial offense, defense is going to get you
Mhm.
and it's going to cost you a fortune.
Correct.
It's going to cost you what you've done, what you've created in your financial offense. And
Yes.
I would suspect that that's probably why a lot of people outlive their wealth because they don't have good, proper financial defense in place. And they're only focusing on offense, which is what the financial world does. And the financial planners are they're offensive planners. They're not defensive planners.
And,
And
and to
go
add
ahead.
to that is when they do plan the defense, it's usually in a very short term need. Like they don't have a lot of foresight in the future to say, okay, this what is what that they assume that need could go away in the future. Okay. Versus, hey, listen, let's take care of that need until you don't need it anymore. So again, the
Right.
commoditization and budget and buying products based on budget has forced people to leave gaps in the future or potentially today, you know? So
Yeah.
it's that the system has, so we have been working with property and casualty homeowners and auto insurance now for probably close to 20 years, maybe 22 years. And I've seen a
Right.
shift in the advice that you give as a professional versus just buying a standard product because it's like cookie cutter.
I was in my dentist's office the other day. Tell me what you think of this. They had a sign that said, "Why X-rays?" Little. It was a kind of a question. Why X-rays? To see is to know, not to see is to guess. And we won't guess about your health. You could say we won't guess about your finances. We
Yeah.
have to see it. And hopefully, when we do these videos, people will watch them and they'll get a little unfrightened about a model. I just think people are scared of change. And we
Y-
come along and we say, we can put your wealth in a model. It doesn't matter how much you make. You made $30,000 a year. You could still do it better and emerge with a huge nest egg.
Yeah.
If you make $300,000 a year, it's just it's 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 a geometric progression. It's just more money
Yeah.
uh, because you had more come through your hands. The problem is people that make $300,000 a year have less usually than the guy making 30, because the guy making 30 is rat holing everything he can get.
Hmm.
With the model, you could see it. It's a simulator. Pilots fly simulators because it's very expensive to crack up airplanes if something messes up. So they use a simulator, which is pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a financial simulator. We can project out into the future. People can see where the mistakes are. We had one client. I can't remember their name, but we saw the tax side growing in a plan in a retirement plan. I think it was a 401k or an IRA, because that deferral keeps growing.
Yeah.
And unless you figure out how to fix that deferral, it's going to cost you a lot in the end. So
Could
people
cost you
go
more.
into yeah. So people go into retirement and they're sitting there and they're thinking, "Well, I got millions of dollars." No, you don't, because to access it's going to cost you a fortune.
Correct. And that
You
goes
got
back to the way people are taught. Like, and the industry is the fault some at this as well. Because, you have companies and producers out there that'll say you should buy term and invest the difference, right? That's a standard. Everybody should do that. Okay.
right,
And then you have the other side of it that says if you do that, it doesn't work, right? All
right,
financial products are built for a specific reason. Okay. The problem is they're sold in pitches. If you look at the need and you evaluate the need properly, you'll find that most times you need multiple products to solve today's need into the future. So like you can take a look at somebody who buys term and invest the difference, and it is historically not worked to where you want to because of the fluctuation of taxes. Okay, it's one thing, and lost opportunity costs, which we can get into. Okay, but even if it works out to the perfect side of it, it still has a very low flexibility during your retirement years. So if your plan goes perfectly, and then the next day when you start accessing it, the plan changes because lifestyle changes, something comes in, it's blown up. So again, considering that protection for the longest period of time, right? Maximum protection is what people are afraid of, because the institutions, all they hear is shop it, build it yourself, and you should save $347. Or you should not buy term insurance. You should buy permanent insurance, and vice versa. So the
you got to prove it.
correct, correct. So a lot of times, what people can do is they can, if it's not in the budget, buy a term product with the hopes to convert it over the future. That's exactly what I did with my finances. I couldn't buy the amount of insurance that I needed when I was 27 or 29 years old, but I knew
Yeah,
that for me to have a successful plan, that death benefit being there when I'm in my 60s and 70s, I learned from the wise men that allowed me to have flexibility in my retirement. So if the tax laws change or something else changes, I'm not at their beck and call. A perfect example of what happens is when you inherited qualified money, before 2020, you were able to take it out over your life expectancy. Well, the government saw an opportunity to seize taxes more on a controlled and earlier basis. And they changed that tax code in 2020 that when you inherit an IRA from a parent or from another generation, that you must take it out over 10 years, forcing you to now have exposure to taxes taking it out, whether you want to or not. So having that permission slip in there allows you to free up or have the permission to not have those changes affect your retirement.
Yeah. The only way to see it or the only way to understand it is to see it.
Yes.
And that's why I'm a big proponent of the model. I mean, bridge builders, they won't build a bridge till they build a model of the bridge. Why? Because they want to understand the inefficiencies of that bridge. You don't want to spend money and build a bridge and have it collapse.
Yeah.
Be very smart. Anyway, so they would build this, and I watch, and I'm building models. You walk around New York City, you see all these skyscrapers. They didn't just throw them up.
Yeah.
But the financial world, in its infinite wisdom, has no model. Whenever large amounts of money is at stake, models are built, except in the financial world. And there's huge amount of money at stake, huge, and there's no model. And when you talk to people, that's why we tell people that we make our money based on commissions, just like other people do. But our commissions are paid by the third party, not by them. But we'll build a model for free. And if the client says, I don't want to do it, we'll walk away, just so they understand. We'll do this, and we'll give them this information at no cost. It's called risk reversal. We take all the risk, and we give them all the joy. We give them the information. So when we do that, and we show them the model, we get pushback because people aren't used to it.
I mean, it starts out with just analyzing the risk side of it. When you look at that, insurance companies don't want you to spend less money with them, but risk should be put off economically by understanding how to self-insure some risk. And that's the philosophy that intimidates people, because the reason that we don't charge a fee, okay, because we can charge a fee, is because we'll use the financial institution's products for your betterment, okay, while letting them pay us. The only thing that I challenge people to come in with is the only thing that we require is an open mind, because a lot of the things that we discuss, okay, are non-traditional and hidden from the average person, because the wealthy have used those ideas where they don't need financial institutions,
Right. Well, what's interesting is that strategy that you mentioned earlier, where you pay a fee, is silly. Because think about it. You find somebody that you like. Now, people will do business with people they know, like, and trust. So you get to trust somebody, and they charge you $5,000 or $10,000, and then they tell you this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Do they send you to somebody that you don't know, that you don't like, that you don't trust? That's crazy. You want somebody that has a stake in the game. I don't know where that came from, that fee-based planning, but people seem to like the term and the logic of it, but it made no logical sense to me why you would invest your time and effort and money to somebody that's going to send you down the road.
Well, I mean, we have seen it. So you've been in the business longer than me, but I've been in the business 30 years. When I came into the business, it was a commission-based business. People were proud of it. The industry was proud of it. Then all of a sudden, a few bad apples started doing certain things, and everybody said, to protect yourself, you should pay a fee up front. That way you'll get a non-biased opinion of the financial institution. So let's say, for example, you were searching for long-term care insurance or life insurance. You would come to me, and I would say, Company A is the best, because I have no allegiance, and people felt that they were protected. Then all of a sudden it went back to fee-based, or then it went back to commissions. And I mean, in today's world, you can look at the money managers out there. Okay. There's a pro and a con to every side of it. Okay. I'm an investment advisor, or I'm a registered investment advisor. I can charge fees, or I can do fee-based or retail planning. A lot of times the retail side of it meets most of my customers' needs. Okay. You evaluate the circumstances, but you're right. The industry thought that they were protecting, and the consumer thought they were protected by coming to somebody who had a non-biased opinion. And,
But it's
I don't
not
think
non-biased.
it's not non-biased. I don't think. I don't know how, because you have to have a preference of a company. There is a leader in each industry that have certain dynamics to their products or service you better, and are worth having that price that may not be considered when just shopping it based on, well, if you want to protect A, it's $3 or $33,
Yeah, yeah. And they come up with all these cockamamie things that our model will prove wrong, like buy term and invest the difference. That would hold up if people would invest, but they don't.
Correct.
And the term prices keep going up. But you don't see it unless you can actually prove it. Our model proves it. We can prove everything that we say and show, and we can verify it as truth and not fiction.
Yes.
Nobody else can say that I know of. And I've been around this field for 40 some years, and I've seen it. And I'm sick and tired of the way people um, fall for stuff. They don't fall for it. They just don't know. And and nothing against financial planners, because I think they mean well. And if they just had structure, I'd leave them alone. And I
Well,
feel that they're doing
there
a
are
good
good
thing.
financial planners that are out there that that do their job well. I mean, it's just like every industry. The problem with our industry is the lead that we're getting is it's a product trend. It's a product uh, transaction. Everybody's looking for the product. And I'll go back to the property and casualty side of it. Is we used to sit down with families and analyze their risk. Now you're just saying, okay, well, I have 50, 100,000 of bodily injury. You don't even understand the coverage, possibly. Okay. And then you're shopping it, not knowing if that's the correct way to go. You talk about buy term, invest the difference. It does work, but you got to take into consideration taxes, inflation, propensity to consume, all those factors in there. And then all of a sudden, at 66 years of age, when you retire, you don't have a death benefit. Is that
Right.
is that proper planning? You need to open up you also need to open up your thoughts out there,
And
because
you got taxable income.
correct. Like I was just talking to a young, a customer's child that was just getting their first job. And I told them the HR department told them, we'll put the maximum in your 401k and we're going to match X amount. Okay. Well, that's a great move for somebody who just wants to use it as a savings account. Okay. But the fact of the matter is if you work 30 plus more years, that thing's going to have possibly $2 million into it, and it's all going to be taxable coming out to you. So there is no foresight, again, looking into why you're doing it today and what the outcome's supposed to be. So I recommended to that person, put into the 401k up to the match so you get the free money from the company, and look at a Roth IRA, because the Roth IRA is going to do the same thing, except not give you the deduction today, but it gives you tax advantages in the future. But most likely, if you follow the path of success, at some point you're not going to be eligible to be in these plans. So what happens is a lot of advisors are lazy, and the consumer's lazy, which forces them to buy concepts that fit today's scenario great, but then 3-4 years later, it's an irrelevant, it's a product obsolescence, or the lifestyle changes. So the
that's
model is
financial.
probably the most important, because you can always move the model. And then what you do is you look at individual, you look at on a micro basis, pull it back out to a macro, make sure everything's good, and then move forward through lifestyle.
It's like it's financial offense without the financial defense. And you know, it frustrates me to see millions of dollars flow through a consumer's hands and them not have a lot to show for it at the end. So who's the culprit here? Is it the people? Do they just not understand? Is it the financial institution that is not teaching them? Who's the culprit? And the conclusion that I can come to is that the financial institutions are not educating the consumer the proper way.
I would agree with the lead comes from the financial institutions because they're not educating them properly. Because I think it's a vicious circle. I think greed is one of consumers that it's not controlled, is everybody thinks that they should be in the market. Everybody thinks that they should be chasing these, you know, high flying trading stocks. You can look at the philosophy of you bought Amazon when it was in its public offering, you put $1,000 in there, you'd be worth whatever today. But the fact of the matter is how many people are willing to take that risk that also at that IPO could have been zero, versus the concept of grow slow, okay, buy Coca-Cola, reinvest it, all of a sudden you have dividends at, whatever they are. So it's just the philosophy.
My point is, though, is you just can't you can't do that with clients unless you see the model first.
Correct.
We can't, and I'm not, you don't, but most people do. They'll make a recommendation. Stockbroker got this hot stock, Mr. Joe.
Yeah.
Well, how's that working out?
Yeah.
And people they buy on whims, they buy on emotion. They got no structure.
Yeah.
If I can get anything across to anybody here, and you and I have been around, you and I have known each other for 30 years, is that just let me set the structure up for you.
Yeah, I mean, the good
just
thing
let me educate you, and I'm willing to do it as long as time permits.
The model serves as I like sports analogies, right? As the captain to your financial plan. So like you may have a tax advisor, you may have a legal advisor, you may have your personal property and casualty advisor, you might have a business where you have business advising. The fact of the matter is unless you as the consumer take the time to organize all of your advisors to sit around a round table and advise you based on so they can hear other people, the model becomes extremely important because it gives you, the consumer, the ability to have accountability to each of these individual micro advisors on a macro level. And I think that's where, you have, I think one of the big wins for us not only is creating long-term wealth, okay, the protection against the wealth, but it's the comfort and the ability to actually see and feel comfortable about things. So like the model brings into its transparency from the financial institutions that traditionally bring anxiety to people. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So what we do is we don't rely on these Monte Carlo projections that are going to be, you're going to give us this amount of money over a long period of time. This is what's going to be there. We're looking at it. Yes, if it's there, what are the negatives and positives to it? Okay. And then how do we support it from there with options? So I think that's the big thing, that when you talk about that model, your passion is we become the quarterback that organizes all of the micro advisors around you so that you have the macro picture, and that brings enjoyment and less anxiety to the financial model, to me.
Well, my doctorate is in macroeconomics, because you've got to be able to understand the big picture before you can understand the little pieces.
Yep.
The financial world approaches the people with the little pieces first, and they don't understand the big picture.
What you'll find when you get into the model is people will either cooperate with the model or they won't cooperate with the model. If they cooperate with the model, that usually means that they have your best interest in mind. Okay. When they're not cooperating with the model, that means the product probably doesn't fit your model, doesn't fit your need for a long period of time. Because whenever we have a customer that asks us a question, I'm buying a house, should I do a 15 or a 30-year mortgage? hey, listen, you know what? I want to start gifting money to my grandkids because I want to start a 529 plan. Okay.
Right.
We always say that's it, that goal. Look at it on a macro level. How are we going to do it? And then
Keep
anytime that
talking.
we analyze a product or a solution, we bring it back out on a macro level.
It's like the chiropractors we work with. They have a model. They
Yep.
understand what we're doing. They've got the spine as their model, and they won't deviate from that model. Um,
No.
so they understand models, but the average consumer doesn't unless you teach them. And that I think it frustrates me that we can't reach enough people. That's why we're doing this video, to let them know that there's help out there, that they can do this and have fun.
Yeah.
They can have a life that they dreamed of. Back to the desires, that once they can get structure, then they can live a life stress free.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, there are books out there called Stress Free Retirement that focus on, concepts on how to retire in that situation. And basically what it does, it touches on how to plan for the future, considering potential flaws that can come through, tax increases, a lot of people project inflation, and things like that out there. Do you put in the cost of money at that side of it? So, the I think if the passion that you have was one of the reasons that I enjoyed working in the agencies the agency that we're in, because where the passion comes out. The problem is the consumer today is kind of intimidated, is what I say, and they just don't know where to start. And sometimes they feel that their lack of knowledge in the area is going to leave them to be taken advantage of, or be misled. And the thing that the model, I think, gives somebody in that particular situation is confidence, because you can always say, okay, let me plug it back into the model and make sure that it's meeting your objectives for today and in the future. So
Yeah.
I think people start out where they're intimidated. They might read an article while sitting in a dentist office or a doctor's appointment and see something and then say, okay, hey, listen, it just said I should start a Roth IRA, not knowing the consequences or not knowing what the product is, and how it fits. They're all products, I feel, have more positives than negatives. So what you have to do as a consumer is you have to make sure that you implement all of those products into your plan. You want to avoid the products that have more negatives than positives at any time. So, and a lot of people will take something today because of its pure cost or outlay, is what we should say. Because when you look at those and you analyze the cost of doing business over that period of time, some of the cheaper plans become ultraly more costly in the future.
Right.
So everybody's based on, because they don't have a structure of the money coming in. I think when I joined Leap as a young advisor, one of the things that I took out of it is all my money went into a checking account and then it was dispersed from there. I didn't hold a large balance in there because I didn't get around to spending that money or allocating that money. It went in and then it dispersed out. And then another check came in. And what that allowed you to do is really put motion of that in there. And then my concentration was to simply just make sure the input is the only thing that I can control. Then we evaluate the outputs. So the comfort that people should have is that we'll help them bring that to the table through the model. And if we do find something, we're there to fix it.